So Niki is a dear friend of us. He's a serial entrepreneur and speaker coach. He's also curator of the Silicon Valley Inspiration Tours. He's a former global TEDx ambassador and expert in exponential growth strategies and the art of storytelling. And today he's ready to share with you his insights into the 7 skills of social intelligence. And you know, the concept of social intelligence by definition is the ability to successfully build relationships and navigate through social environments. And Niki is going to share exactly his tips on how you can have better social interactions. So Niki, once again, really grateful to have you with us today, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm psyched to speak in front of you guys again. I'm super excited to do this together with you. And together with you means that I'm sharing thoughts and ideas, and you play back to me if that makes sense for you or not. And thank you, Annette, for this beautiful introduction. I always feel like after this introduction, it's not getting any better than this. I should leave now. But of course, this is where the whole fun should begin. And I would see, when I listen to this being introduced, I would see that it sounds a little like I'm expert of bubbles, because there's a lot of cloudy things that I work with people around. But what we're talking about today is not at all a bubble. It's about the fact that everyone, and not you specifically, you roughly 20 people in the audience, but everyone in the world is facing the fact that we as humans, we're treating each other worse than 5 years ago. So you might have heard about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Some of them are covering environmental issues, some of them are covering infrastructure issues, and some of them are covering human issues or issues of humanity. And of course, they're monitored how we're moving on along the line in these 15 years where the SDGs have been set. And we're moving on everywhere, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, sometimes above expectation, sometimes below expectation. We're moving on. But when we look into these targets that tackle the way humans are treating each other, we're worse than 4 years ago, or as it's 2020, 5 years ago. The whole thing started in 2015. So talking about the skills of behavior, talking about the skills of social intelligence basically means, and I'm going to go into this, is you know how to behave that people enjoy having you around. And the presentation, the part where I'm talking is in English, but if you want to ask a question, feel like I'm not sure if I can articulate my question well in English, put it in German. I'm fine. We can switch back and forth. I'm bilocal in Vienna and in San Francisco. I feel like I'm more or less native with both languages. Although some people say, now that you're speaking more English, you're neither good in German nor in English. But I think good enough to work that through with you. So if you feel like I want to be part of this conversation, but I feel uncomfortable in talking in English or writing in English, please feel free. I want this to be very interactive. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share the screen so we can jump right into this. And before I do so, I have to turn that part on, and then, wait, let me redo share screen. Here we go. Tam. And then I would like to see the chat somewhere open so I can see it when you're writing to me, which I think is also important. So some housekeeping stuff going on here. Please pardon the hiccups. Okay, no chats. A little about me to start with. I'm 48 this year. I was in advertising for many years, and that was an industry that was exciting. It was exciting because you were working with the head of the organization. Communications and advertising and branding was on the agenda of the CEO. So I was talking to the CEO, I was reporting to the CEO, and I was working on strategies, communication strategies with the CEO. That was what was exciting with advertising, not the parties and all the other stuff that people might read or talk about. It was exciting that advertising was something that the CEO was part of the conversation. That changed over the time. But something else popped up over the time, and that was TED. I don't know if you've ever heard of TED or TED Talks or TEDx. First chat. Okay. Sorry. That's something that I was part of, as Annette introduced earlier. I was 7 years working together with TED, helping the organization, the community of organizers, grow the TEDx network of 4,000 licensees. So today, and for years now, there are 10 TEDx events every day somewhere in the world. TED also brought me to San Francisco, where I got introduced to a few people that also ignited the idea of the Silicon Valley Inspiration Tours. I got introduced to Singularity University. They're experts in exponential technology to solve grand global challenges. Their motto, and I think that's a nice motto to live by, is if you want to be a billionaire, you have to change the life of 1 billion people. And that's what Moonshot Pirates is all about, right? We don't think about changing the life of a few people. We're thinking about changing the life of 1 billion people, and doing that by tackling the world's biggest challenges. The Innovation Agency Network is an organization of companies in the creative industries, helping companies identify what would be the next thing they should work on to satisfy customer needs. My School of Talk is a public speaking and giving talks and lectures roof brand. And in 2018, so 2 years, it's the second year now, in the third year, I've expanded the Silicon Valley Inspiration Tours to New York, London, Tel Aviv, Dubai, Mumbai, and Hong Kong. That makes the Global Inspiration Tours. And as it always takes a few minutes to explain what I am and what I'm doing, I asked a friend of mine how he would explain, how he would put in very few words who I am and what I'm doing, as he knows me well over 10 years or more. And he said, "Hey, Niki, you are the business therapist." And that's actually something I can resonate with, because if a business therapist is successful, he helps people identify strengths and working on them to become the better version of themselves, to do something that not only satisfies them and makes them identify a passion worth following, but also contributing to this world we live in today, which is, I think, and even more now with the limitations that we have right now, an excellent time for experiment, an excellent time to follow what you're passionate about. And this live your dream thing has never been more real and true than today. So much about me. The social intelligence, as I mentioned earlier, or as Annette also introduced, it's basically, in a nutshell, the ability to navigate in social environments. You want to make people enjoy having you around. You don't want to, it's not about analyzing and understanding your environment. It's about behaving in a way that people want you around, or in other words, that you become a people's magnet, that people gravitate to you, which is something that's always satisfying because it also supports you having conversations you want to have. We talk about 7 skills. I'm going to go into the 7 skills in a minute, but we have to start first with understanding how we function. And I'm not going to give you a school lecture. I guess you're done with that. You're enough of that. But you might have heard this in class. The brain has basically 3 evolutionary steps. The first one was the reptilian brain, where it's basically about the 4 Fs, if you heard of them before. So it's fight, fleet, food, and if you know someone and you really like each other, then you do the other F. And then the second generation was the emotional brain, and the latest and the most current evolution was the logic. And when we look into this, this is also an evolution of a world of a me into a world of we, which of course is a world of connections. And that's what we want to have. We want to have connections. That's what it's all about when we see human interaction. And with connections, so how we position ourselves in a social environment, very often we ask ourselves the question about status. We see that people who are successful, people who are people's magnets, they seem to have a high status. And that's my first question to you when we distinguish status between internal and external status. What is your association? And if we, as we seem to be only able to chat here, I would suggest that we do this in the chat. So you just text me into the chat, I, and then hyphen, or E and hyphen, what you think about is the difference between internal and external status. Examples that come to your mind when you think of internal status, what could that be? Or examples that come to your mind when you think of external status, what could that be? And I'm curious to see what's popping up here. I hope you can all access the chat. And if you can, please just raise your hand. Here we go. Here's the first one. Yes. External chat education. Interesting. How we value ourselves. How others value us. Okay. Money. Very good. Keep it coming. And as I said, I don't care if it's English or German. What else could be internal status? Or external status? What comes to your mind when you think about external status? Don't be shy. I'm going into this to distinguish here what we're talking about. And internal status, in a nutshell, is all about confidence, self-esteem, right? The skills and the belief system. Whereas the external status very much is material status. It's like the car you have, the house you have, the devices that you wear around or carry around with you, title and education. A lot of people chase internal status by constantly learning. And we're going to go into this, which is not working. Also, your associations, your network is an external status. And of course, the genetics, how you look, how many of you go to the gym, that's external status. Because most of the people who go to the gym don't go there because it's healthy, but because they want to have nice abs or nice muscles. They want to look nice. They want to have nice external status. A lot of people ask me when I talk about the skills of social intelligence, of what they expect from the conversation to increase their confidence. And we all talk about confidence, right? This is kind of the elephant in the room. Do we feel safe? Do we feel secure? Are we confident? And of course, the answer is always yes, but, because we're always confident at something, but not confident at everything. So when you feel that you feel a lack of confidence, you just have to think about the things that you're confident at. And that will already give you a lot of internal status, because you know that you're good at that. And you don't have to be good at everything. But per definition, confidence is getting as close as possible in mastering a skill. That's when you really master at something, you feel confident about it. Ski racer feels really confident on the mountain. If you put him in a jet and said, fly that jet, he probably will not feel very confident, because that's not the skill he's mastered in. So let's jump into this, if that makes sense for you so far. The first skill of social intelligence is body language. 7% of our communication skills are words. That means the rest is everything that we cover the words with, or that comes along with the words. And 7% is not a lot. And I guess you've all been there, that you've said something and someone else said more or less the same thing, but that someone got hurt and you not. And you feel like, hey, I just said the same thing. Why are people listening to that guy and not to me? I said exactly the same thing. Why? Because what you've said, or the words that came out of your mouth were just 7% of what you said. So body language is a lot that supports your words. And when you see people that come in a very open and confident way, you also feel more trust. When I come to you and I'm like this, it's kind of weird because I have to look at the camera to look at you, but when I'm looking like this and my voice is slow and I'm looking around and I don't give you the feeling that I'm really safe with what I'm saying, you don't think that it's worth listening to me. Whereas when I come to the room and I said, hey, we're talking about the social skills. We're talking about how we become people's magnets, how we have 7 aspects of the way we enter a place, the way we own a place that changes the behavior of others all around us. Now, if I was like this, you probably have a better trust that I know what I'm talking about than if I'm like this. Body language in a nutshell, it's about the posture. There's a really nice talk from Amy Cuddy at TED.com. You want to look about that, where it's about body posture, where you can make yourself strong and experiment how it feels if you make yourself small. Eye contact, as I said before, hey, I look in your eyes. Even though we don't have a real connection, we're disconnected, although we're connected. I look in your eyes and you can feel this. I'm talking to you guys. And of course, speed. I might not be strong at that, to be honest. I am a fast speaker. But also, if you feel like you're in a situation where confidence is dropping, where you're insecure, where it's important for you to convey a message, a bulletproof tip is to slow down and calm your voice and speak slowly. Address the person you're talking to. Build a stage for each word to follow, and talk to the people who listen to you in a calm and slow way. And you will realize when you slow down your voice and when you are confident and conscious, when you're conscious about what you're saying, that will increase your confidence, and that will automatically increase the attention of people listening to you. Talk about attention span. I recently got updates on statistics that the attention span of Gen Zs is 7 seconds and of millennials 10 seconds. So I'm talking for 12 minutes. If you're still with me, I'm extremely proud of you. But we move on. There's more to say. Next one is conversational agility. Conversational agility basically means that you find the right words to convey your message. And if you're not able to articulate your idea or your thoughts, your visions, your dreams, your hopes, your desires, your emotions, it is as if you don't have any of this. So I'm a speaker coach and I work with people who go on a stage. And again, please, I want to see more interactivity here. When do you think it's important to be a good speaker? Write down your thoughts. Question is, when is it important to be a really good speaker? Let me see what's coming up here. Nothing. Always. You don't have to. Yes, always. The moment you start talking, you should know how to use language to support you. So the art of storytelling, which is basically what we're talking about, has one thing that's crucial to be successful. And that's something that when I work with speakers, I see this a lot that's going in the wrong direction. Speakers want their audience to understand what they're talking about. If you are explaining something to me, you want me to understand. If you are sharing an emotion with your partner, you want your partner to understand. If I'm talking about social intelligence, I might want you to understand, but actually I don't. I want something different. I want you to say, very interesting, tell me more. I want to ignite curiosity. How would be a conversation? What words would you use in a conversation to someone that's close to you, your parents, your friends, your partners, your teachers? If you don't want them to understand, but if you want them to say, hey, I want to have this conversation with you. And that's where you're on spot. That's where you hit the hammer on the nail. When people want to have the conversation. Because the moment I understand, I want to drop back my opinion. But when I want to have the conversation, I want to listen to you. Because that's one thing that we're all lacking. We're lacking attention. We're lacking the feeling of people listen to us. People are listening to us. They want us to say. They want us to talk to them. So when we talk about storytelling, when we talk about building a talk or having a conversation, the first and foremost important thing is that you should know who you're talking to. And I'm not saying you should be conscious that you're talking to your mother, or you should be conscious that you're talking to your teacher or your friend or whoever. I'm saying that some people feel physical pain if you talk too much. And you might be one of those. Some people want to hear about what you did last weekend because otherwise they think you only want something from them. Others, they want to understand your way of thinking, the process. Because if they don't understand your way of thinking, they think it's either luck or a random reason why you came up with something, but there's no meat behind what you're saying. So you have to give them process. Others, and I'm sure you've met them, they can't listen, they want to talk. So you have to give them facts so they can talk. It's not about who's phrasing out the core. It's about that it's put into the room, that it's said out, that it's spoken. And if you have an argument with someone and that person says what you wanted to say, you can just like, this is exactly what I wanted to say. Thank you. I feel like you got it really right. And you can even applaud to that person. And you can see already these are 4 different archetypes, and it makes such a difference how you approach someone. When you're talking to someone who feels physical pain, if you talk too much and you share your activities from the weekend, that person just wants to get out of the conversation as soon as possible. And if it's only about the first few sentences where you give someone the feeling that you understand who you're talking to, speakers take this too lightweighted. Startups who give presentations or a pitch take this too lightweighted. They have one pitch. But what I just shared with you, these archetypes are so different. If you only have one pitch, you only have a 25% chance to reach the right audience. There is a 75% likelihood that the person you're talking to does not want to listen to you anymore. If you always start with the same intro, always start with the same sentence. So I think it's very easy to understand or to identify, because people who feel physical pain, if you talk too much, usually also they don't wear a lot of patterns on their clothes. They wear very lean, straight color. Because if I get annoyed by too many words, I also get annoyed by too many patterns. Their desks are empty. They don't want to have portraits of the family on the desk. They have everything that needs to be on the desk is on the desk, and everything that doesn't have to be on the desk is just not there. So you can already identify those. If people have maps on the wall, if people have their to-do lists all around, these are people who want to understand the process. There are these little things that you can point out, and these little things that make a difference when you understand, hey, this is this kind of guy. I can approach him the exact same way how I approach the other guy with the empty table. And of course, when you talk to someone, it's also about why they should listen to you. You have to give them a reason. Sometimes it's a personal reason. Sometimes it's a global reason. Sometimes you're presenting a group or a team or whoever is behind you and you are the voice. And then you have, of course, if you give them a reason to listen, it's also good to give them something, they haven't seen before. At TED, we call this rewire the brain. We give them a new idea. We give them a new approach. We show them something that the world hasn't seen, or we show them something the world hasn't seen that way. And if you're successful with this, they will answer, very interesting, please tell me more. And of course, an also important part of conversation is the why me part. And I'm not talking about your achievements when I talk about why me. I'm not talking about the awards you've won, the good results that you have. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about passion here. And when you understand that everything changes when even though it's something you could not care less, but if you're actually there and you're talking to someone about something, even though you could not care less, it already makes so much of a difference if you pretend to care. If you jump into that position, if you jump into that situation, if you jump into that role and be passionate about it. And for 5 minutes, there's nothing I can pretend to be passionate about, because otherwise I just shouldn't speak. And that's the last point. If you talk to someone, you must have a social agenda. You cannot just talk to someone. If you are invited to give a talk, if you're invited to speak in front of class, I have to should never be the reason. Give yourself a reason that's worth giving an effort into this. Give yourself a reason why you go to a bar tonight. Why? Well, soon actually. Give yourself a reason why you invite people over. And if you go out and if you go to a conference, if that might happen, or if you go to a place, your social agenda might be, I want to talk about the future of education tonight, or maybe not at all. I want to talk about windsurfing on the lake last weekend. Whatever is your social agenda, consciously and subconsciously, you will steer conversation towards that social agenda, and it will always be the better experience if upfront you know what you want to take out of this. Shall it be a stage, or shall it be any other situation where you with more than one person in the room? I hope that makes sense so far. And again, I want to renew my offer. Post into the chat if you have a question, have a thought, if you disagree. I love that dialogue. I love being challenged with my thoughts and views. I'm passionate about this, as you can see, but that doesn't mean that I'm always right. So if you disagree, please come here and raise your voice. The third part, and I'm sure that you can resonate with this, assertiveness is basically the art of giving feedback and not regret it. Have you been in the situation that you shared a personal emotion with someone, and by the reaction of that person, you regretted that you shared that? I guess all of you have been there. Shall be your parents, your friends. You gave feedback, and you put yourself in the position of being vulnerable when you give feedback. And then you go like, oh, I wish I hadn't said it. My life, I could have dealt with it. There was no need to actually share it, but I did, and now I regret it. Most of the time, it's about you. It's about how you give feedback and not how the person responds. And there are a few tricks and tips. So usually, and the answer is yes, you're going to have access to the slides. You don't have to make notes about the slides. The Annette and the Moonshot Pirates team will share the slides with you. You will see all of them. Passive is something that women often do. Through my behavior, I want you to read and understand what I want to share with you. Aggressive is what men often do. I'm giving you feedback in a way that I'm giving you a really hard time to take it, even though you know I'm right, because I'm swearing at you, I'm raising my voice, I'm aggressive, my body is towards you, I want to put myself in a higher position than you. That's something that you see often with men giving feedback. And then passive aggressive you see everywhere. And that's basically, I'm talking with someone else about you, but you're in the room. And if you're like, hey, what's happening here? Why is he not talking to me? So what's the real way? And the real way, of course, we call it assertive. And assertive basically means that you care, but you don't care too much. And you won't give feedback if you don't care at all, right? Because why would you if you don't care? But if you do care too much, it's like 99% likely that you might find the wrong words, that you might find the wrong language. So you have to put yourself in a position of abundance. I do care. This is why I give you feedback. But you know, it's also some sort of an offer. If you don't take it, whatever, I offered it to you. I'm fine. I can deal with it. And of course, you can't pretend not to care. You can't pretend not to be really emotional about what's happening here. And everything in your body is boiling and you want to get it out, and you want that person, you don't care if you find the right words. You just want to get it out. Bam, this is where you always find the wrong words for it. So of course it's easy to think like this kind of, there's two ways. One is put yourself in a position of how much do I care in 6 months from today, or how much will I care in 3 days from today? And very often it's like, yeah, I know I won't care, but I care right now, so I'm still like that. Another way is finding yourself some sort of formula. And one formula could be, hey, and then you can fill in your name. I don't know if it's your intention or not, but when you, and then you fill in what that person is doing, it makes me feel like, and then you get shared emotion. What can we do about it? And if that works for you, great. If not, figure out what kind of formula works for you, that you put in the things that you want to share, but in a way that the other person can take it. And that already will make a lot of a difference. We're on number 3 and 25 minutes. We're good with timing. Number 4, the skill of responding to any random sentence in perfect British English. Don't you agree? We all love British English. We're talking about humor here. And humor is a skill that you might have by nature, and then it's easy. But you also might be in the position, or might be in that person who knows when I make a joke, and even though I think it's funny, no one ever laughed at me, with me. Or you might be that person who's like, why funny? There's nothing to laugh about. However, all of you will probably agree that humor is just a gateway. Is there a new message? Humor is just a gateway to your hearts. Humor just opens up the conversation. If you are funny, people want to have a conversation with you. So as I said before, you can have it, and that's cool, but you can also learn it. And what inspired me a lot was improv. It's a form of comedy. It's improvisation theater. And they have maxims. There is a book that I can advise, and the book is called Improv Wisdom. Let me type that here. All panelists and attendees, Improv Wisdom. And improv wisdom, and someone says humor is something to do with intelligence. I could not agree more. And it's basically the more connections you have, the more dots you have, the more connections you can build. And dots don't come by nature, so you have to foster them and you have to acquire them. And dots basically means data points or information. And the more you have of this, the more it might make you sound intelligent. Maybe you're still not intelligent, but the more you can connect these dots and be funny. Rules of humor I have listed here from Improv Wisdom. Basically, a very simple rule of humor, and that's not only humor. We're actually talking about leadership. We're talking about innovation. We're talking about business strategy. But of course, we also talk about humor. If this is true, what else is true? And you can take, if you forget everything and you memorize, if this is true, what else is true, your life will be different from tonight on. Talking about if this is true, what else is true as a joke. If you addressed me and said, hey, Niki, your t-shirt is really, I mean, what do you think about this? It looks terrible on you, and it's, I don't know, it's cheap and everything. In a thinking, the mindset of if this is true, what else is true, my answer would be, hey, I agree. It's not only really dirty, I didn't even wash it for a month. So it also smells like hell. So be glad that you're only connected via Zoom with me. And I'm just giving an example, and you can carry it wherever you want. If this is true, what else is true always works. But if this is true, what else is true also can also be applied to relationships, right? If you're talking about that person that way, how would you talk about me when I'm not there? Is also, if this is true, what else is true? And you can take it for granted. If you think like this about people, other people will think about you like this as well. If you're among people and you're talking about someone who's not in the room, everyone in the room knows that you are talking about people who are not in the room. So it's also kind of it's tricky. It's not only humor, it's also a weapon. And I want to fly over the others. And if you want to go into this a little more, just raise your hands and let me know. We can talk about this. Humor is also, and say yes basically means that you put yourself in the driver's position and not in the passenger's position. Take this. If you say no, every time you say no, you automatically become a victim, a passenger, not a driver. And for some people, that's okay. For some people, it's okay to have someone else making the decisions and taking responsibility. For most of the people I know, they want to be in the driver's seat. They want to be responsible for the things that are happening. And if you have like a say no attitude, you also have a no one told me that attitude, or I didn't get the email, or I didn't know what to do. That's all the same nature. Say yes to everything and take things. When you look into the right column, you say you can read wake up to the gifts. That basically means everything is a gift. Sometimes it's easy, but sometimes it's tricky, but everything is a gift. A difficult question is a gift, because if you give a good answer, you've grown in front of your audience. COVID, the situation that we're at home right now and we can't move, is a gift because it's true for everyone. And if something is true for everyone, that's the new truth. That's the new normal. So it's just about being fast with things that people didn't expect, or it's about experimenting, because if everything is new, everyone is looking at the white paper. And if everyone is looking at the white paper, you can be the first one who drops something on it. So it's a way of seeing things differently. And as I said, humor is not only about being funny. Humor is also about steering yourself through life in a different way. Don't prepare. That doesn't mean that you should not go to an exam without having learned anything. Don't prepare means that you should be okay being an amateur. Don't try to be over professional. Don't make it tense. Don't create tensity for yourself before you do something. Just show up means that you should be there, right? Already being there makes a difference in many, many things. So figure out, where should I show up? Put this on your agenda, on your weekly agenda. Where do I want to show up this week? In which environment do I want to be? in which situation want to be the first one who said, hey, this is me. I'm going to go into this battle in a second. Start anywhere. When I'm speaking in front of people in a conference setting, and there's an MC and he introduces me, and I go on the stage and said, hey, I'm so happy you're here, and it's such a sunny day, and what a great speaker before, and I'm not going to keep up to the bar that the speaker has just put, and it's going to be, I don't know, whatever, it's boring. So no one wouldn't listen to this. And if you can take it for granted that you have 20 seconds of attention, and so I'm talking about 20 seconds. Your audience, you give 20 seconds attention span, you can work with that. But you don't want to fuck up the 20 seconds of attention from your audience with introducing yourself or talking about other speakers or the weather or appreciation that the people showed up. So just go into that and start right talking to you. The average, I mentioned that before when I talked about the professionalist. A lot of people perceive themselves as a professionalist. I'm not satisfied if it's not perfect. I'm sorry, perfectionist, not professionalist. It's a hard time because if you're looking for the perfect solution, you spend your life looking. In Silicon Valley, there's a term being used a lot, and that's done is better than perfect. Because if you're okay with mediocrity, you're okay with learning fast. You're okay with knowing very soon what works and what does not work. Pay attention. I live my life like a sponge. Whenever I'm in a situation, I'm soaking up information. I'm figuring out what's happening here. Is there something that I can see that people don't see? Slow down, look around, identify something you haven't seen before. This is something that you can do just for a practice. Every time you work and you want to take a 2 minutes break from focusing and look around your room and focus. And I promise you, no matter how many times you've been in that room before, if you were born in that room and you've never left that room until today, until this webinar, you will spot out something you haven't seen before. And that's a good training to start to see the little things. Face the facts, stay on course, don't meander, be that person you want to be. And I'm going to go into this later. Make mistakes, act now, and take care of each other. And above everything, enjoy the ride. Everything makes a difference for you and for people around you if everyone sees that you're having a good time. It's so infectious. Everyone wants to have a good time. And if you see me having a good time, you feel like, he's found his sweet spot. He's found his thing. So cool. And that's something that will happen to you as well if you appreciate this. I hope that makes sense for you so far. I'm moving on. Oh, wait. Lately, I've been in a situation where I'm meeting a group of people for the first time, and they're comfortable talking about completely random things. And to me, the conversation seems really vague and empty. Okay. I'm going to go to this exact question in 2 points. 2 more, and then I'm going to talk about exactly this, Batul. Yes. Give me a minute for this. Charisma. We talk about magnetism, and that's kind of a summary of a lot of things. It's about how you articulate, how you speak. Are you a good storyteller? I mean, who of you does not enjoy listening to a good story? Please talk to me. I think if you don't enjoy listening to a good story, we should talk. Usually everyone enjoys listening to good stories. Body language. It's so cool to be standing in front of someone who uses his body. And if you start using your body, everything happens without, my brain didn't tell my fingers to be like this. It just happens because I'm using my body to express my emotions and my thoughts and my ideas and my visions. Sexual presence. Might sound weird, but of course, sexual people, we spot out people who have a sexual presence. Who of you doesn't want to have a sexual presence? It's attractive. We like attractive things. Most of the people I know enjoy beauty. I know very few people who buy ugly. Touch is something that's just critical. It's a sensitive topic. But of course, when you know that it's okay to touch someone, putting your hand on the shoulder of someone, said, hey, I'm here. I hear you. You want to talk? Makes so much of a difference than if you just say like, hey, if you want to talk, call me. And then orienting body and head towards each other. if I talk to you like this, I had a teacher when I was studying when I did the MBA at the Danube University. I had a teacher, and he was a smart guy, and I have to admit, I enjoyed his language. But it was so weird because he looked outside of the window and said, "The vineyards, if people stop working on them, nature will get it back in 5 years." And it was weird. It was strange, right? If you're talking to people, it's way more connecting, and give people the feeling that you are in good faith, that in the question of the doubts, be positive, and don't think about what could this have been against me. And I know sometimes this is hard. Sometimes it's really hard to interpret something in a positive way when it feels so obvious for you that there is a hidden agenda. But I'm going to come to that. My very last point is about that, how you can avoid being around people who always have this weird hidden agenda thing that's probably not in favor to you. And that's, again, something that starts with you. I'm going to go to this in a minute. Before we go into this, let me talk about approach. And that's basically what Batur said, right? In situations where you're meeting a group of people and it's kind of a random conversation and you feel like, what am I doing here? I don't know. I want to have something that has meat. I want to have something that's worth spending my lifetime around. I want to talk something. There's something that's important for me. The thing is that there are, and I love this, I don't know why I really don't know why this is happening, but it's always happening. Wherever you go to a place where there are people, there are different archetypes of people. The first one is standing there and looking at his phone. Don't approach that person. Because if you approach that person, you will be the best friend of that person that evening. And if you go out and you want to have a conversation with people, that's most of the time the motivation to go out. You don't want to have a conversation with one person the whole evening. You want to have more conversation, right? You want to mingle. So drop the guy with the phone. Pity him, pity her. The other one is groups of 2 or 3. And you don't want to go to any other than groups of 2 or 3. And the groups of 2 or 3 can either stand in an open way or in a closed way. So I'm displaying a group of 2. There's like a V. They're standing in an open way. We actually call this literally open 2. You can go and join them and say, hey, can I join that conversation? They will be okay. A closed 2 are standing like this. They're facing each other. You can approach them and say, hey, can I join your conversation? And they will probably be polite and say, yeah, sure. But they are in a conversation where there's no room for a third person. They will not even recognize when you sneak off that conversation. But the evening is over for you. You will feel so bad. It's excruciating. You don't want to have this. So find open 2s. And the same is with 3. An open 3 is basically something like this, where you have 3 people standing like this. You can go and ask them to join, and they will be okay. And you have a conversation and might close them to a closed 4. This is a closed 3. Again, 3 people are facing each other. There is no room for you to join. So only look for open 2s and open 3s. And you don't want to address a group of more than 4 people, because when you address a group of more than 4 people, it will always be a random conversation. It will always be about whatever. Why? Because a group of more than 4 people is never having one conversation. It always starts with 2 people in that setting having their own conversation, and then it's jumping from one end to another. You can't have a strong conversation with more than 4 people in a setting. And the moment you only address groups of open 2 or groups of open 3, and you join them, my promise to you, you will have better conversations that evening. And of course, there are only 3 ways of getting to know people, right? The first one is you go to people and start talking to them. The second way is someone comes to you and starts talking to you. And the third way of approach is someone introduces someone to you. And all of the 3 are happening all of the time. But 2 and 3 are based upon hope. because you're passive. You're waiting for someone to approach you. You're waiting for someone to introduce you to another person. And of course, you don't want to put your life decisions based upon hope. So my advice is, and I hope that answers your question, Batur. My advice is go to people, but only go to groups of 2 and groups of 3 and forget the others. And then the stake is very high that you're going to have a conversation you want to have. I hope that makes sense for you. I have to mute myself. So default setting, and default setting is basically about how can you become the person you want to be? Because when you are the person you want to be, you will attract the people you want to have around. Most of the time we bend ourselves into a different version because we think that's what you guys expect from me to be. But when you bend yourself in a different version of yourself, you attract people that gravitate to this version of yourself. You might not like them because it's not you. You're showing a different character. So different characters gravitate to this version of you. But if you know who you are and you are who you want to be, you will attract people you want to have a conversation with. You attract situations you can deal with. You attract jobs you want to have. Because this is some sort of this universal law, and depending on your woo-woo border, you can take it or not, but things are happening also if we don't see them. And that's very much that things attract to situations and attract to settings. And if you know who you are, and my trick, and that's also something that's very, very easy. I do this every day. I've been introduced to this concept 2 years ago, and ever since, every evening I ask myself, was today a good snapshot of myself? Was I the person I want to be? Because if you ask yourself this question every day, what do you think is going to happen? You become the person you want to be. Because after a few days, when you have to admit to yourself that you haven't been the person you want to be, you're going to start being annoyed because you've missed the chance of being who you want to be for a whole day. And the more you become yourself, the more comfortable situation you attract. And then it happens that you can surrender the fear of failure. Right? Then it happens that you don't have to fight procrastination with motivation. You don't have to pretend that you're excited. That's not working. You can't pretend. You can't. This fake it till you make it thing works sometimes, but not in every situation of your life. And if you know who you want to be, don't be anything else but who you want to be. And if you know who you want to be, you understand you're moving away from the by me idea into a through me idea. Because through me means that you understand these things that are happening and you work in harmony with these principles and laws. I don't know if you've ever heard of the law of attraction. There is this book, The Secret. It went through all the book charts, I think 10 years ago. It's still something worth listening. If you're on Netflix, there is actually a 1-hour video of that book, of that book. Watch it. It's so powerful and so strong. And even if your woo-woo edge is close, there are a few things that you will understand. By me basically is very stressful because you take charge of everything that's happening. You're responsible for success. You're responsible for failure. The Secret. And I think the author is Rhonda Byrne or something like that. But if you put, and the film, the documentary, or it's not a documentary, the Netflix thing is also called The Secret. It's about the law of attraction, which basically means like attracts like, and that's measurable even. So by me, and of course the third version is by others, but I'm not talking about this, right? I'm talking to you guys. You guys are the steering wheel guys, not the passenger guys. So you're maybe in the by me. I'm successful because I work hard. And the through me is I'm successful because I understand what works for me and what does not work for me. And the things that work for me, I pursue, and I become better than anyone else in that. Of course, school is not very supportive in this, but because school is not very supportive of this, there is something like the Moonshot Pirates, because that's what we're for. That's what we want to help you understand and trust in, the through me principles. Certainty over skills. We spoke about the status, right? Certainty is internal state. Skills are external acquisition, external status. You never get certainty, you never get confident just by continue learning. By acquiring skills, it's just not going to happen. Update your peer group. That's a bad one. I don't like it, but it's a universal law. You become the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And if the 5 people you hang around with constantly have trouble in their life and you're that person who's there for them, you will also have trouble in your life. I'm not saying that you should drop people and let them hang loose. I'm saying that you should be careful that you don't start making other people's problems your problems, because this is happening if you surround yourself with too many people with problems. So you have to be careful with who you hang with. And I know that also means sometimes saying no. It also means sometimes not being around, not being there for that person. But you can only help people if you help yourself. You can only, if you're experienced with flying, you know that you have to put on the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your neighbor or on your child or your little one. You have to be strong first. And if you are around people who are weak, you become weak. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that none of these 5 should be, I'm not saying that you should be only with heroes. I think it's good to have both, but you have to keep it balanced. And if you watch yourself hanging around and say like, oh, wow, all of my friends call me with trouble all the time. I seem to be their go-to if I'm worried, if I'm fear, if I'm excited, if I'm anxious, if I'm whatever. You have to start saying no. And you have to find people who are magnets for you, who are the person who you want to become. Because only by reading and only by listening to someone in distance, you cannot download this. That's too distant. You have to have this in your inner circle. I'm sorry, I feel like this is something hard to find the right words for, because everyone wants to be there for their friends, but you have to be careful about that. And then the financial thermostat. When you start working, what feels right for you? Like type it. No, you don't have to type it down. It's too personal. But for some people, say, I want to make 50,000 euro a year. That's okay. Or, whew, that's a lot of money. If I make 20, I'm happy. What, 20,000? So much money. How about 1 million? How does it feel for you? Close your eyes and open that paper in your hands. And on that paper, there is your monthly payout. And it says 100,000 euro. How does it feel? Does it feel like, oh, do I earn this? Ain't this a little too much? Or does it feel like, hey, this is exactly what I'm worth. This is exactly what I deserve. The thing is that if you have a financial thermostat of a poor person, you might make money one day, but you will lose everything because your financial thermostat is a poor person's thermostat. And if you have a financial thermostat of a rich person, you might lose everything one day, but you will become rich again because your financial thermostat is on rich. And that's something worth practicing. Go on your notebook, go on your, I don't know what you're using, Google Keep or Moleskine, shall it be digital or analog, and write down a number that feels comfortable for you. And look at that number every day and say, this is what I want to make next year. And that's what's going to happen because you make conscious and subconscious decisions to get there. I hope that you can take this, because I understand if you feel like, no, I only make money if I work hard. That's what my parents told me. I have to study, I have to finish school with best results. I have to work hard. I have to do what I'm told to do. And if I'm successful with that, I will get a paycheck that's reasonable. The ugly truth is that's only half of the truth. Because all these hard workers one day burn out, and all these companies who give them paychecks and bonuses, the second they burn out, you're just a number, you're gone. No one cares about you anymore. You don't want to be judged by the amount of days you function. This is where you're steering towards if you think like working hard is the recipe to being successful. And I'm not saying that you don't have to work hard. I'm not saying that it's going to be long nights and long days, short nights and long days to get somewhere. And you can talk to the founders of the Moonshot Pirates. They work really hard, but it doesn't feel like working. It feels like something you're passionate about, you really want to do. It doesn't feel like working for someone. It feels like working for something that's bigger than yourself, and there nothing else makes sense for you than being fully invested in what you're doing. And that's always part of the financial thermostat. And I'm running a little over time. So I'm closing with what I've said before. This is an invitation to you guys, a nice little daily ritual. Tonight, when you go to bed, ask yourself, was I the person I want to be? Was today a good snapshot of myself? And I hope you enjoyed this 51 minutes and 50 seconds together with me. I'm here for you with questions and thoughts and doubts and ideas, and share situations. Let me know what you think. Matthias asked the question.
Exactly. How do you measure
progress? How do you measure progress on your developments? How do you check if you're in the right direction? Very good question. Wonderful question. So let me share my personal definition of happy. I think we're happy by default. That basically means that if you're unhappy, there are too many things in our lives that make us unhappy. So basically, the journey towards happiness is you have to remove the things that make you unhappy. So you don't have to chase happiness, you just have to chase the lack of things that make you unhappy. You have to make sure that you get away from the things that make you unhappy. Same is with becoming who you want to be. The more you observe yourself being in situations you feel comfortable, or, we always realize when it's uncomfortable and we don't realize when it's comfortable. So the less you realize that you're in situations where you feel uncomfortable, that's your metric of success. That's your metric of moving on. And you realize, well, every other week I'm in a situation where I'm like, what steered me into this? And when this disappears, then you know that you're on the right path. I don't know if that makes sense for you, but I think that it's just like that. You have to remove the things that make you unhappy to become happy. So if you become who you want to be, you will realize that there are these things that make you unhappy, they don't come anymore. And if they come, you look at them from a total different perspective. Okay.
Great answer. Totally makes sense. That's Matthias. So I also can't more than agree. So so far we don't have any other questions coming up. But Niki, I would like to just thank you so much for today's session once again, and hope to see you soon again, either on our webinars or at the Beer Pirate Challenge or at the Moonshot Pirates Bootcamp in Moscow.
Love to. I love what you're doing. And I plugged my email and my internet, my web address. So reach out for me, mail me. Really, I'm there. If you want to hop on a session to talk about things that are important for you, please do this. I love to help you. I love to maybe show you things that work for me. Maybe they work for you as well.